Hi there, welcome to Facebook Live. It is the real life edition on Thursday night. I'm really hoping that I have solved the issue where my feed cuts out in the middle of yeah. Anyway, had lots of issues last night with my Wi-Fi or whatever was going on, but it kept cutting out in the middle of my my Facebook Live. So I've got a great topic tonight. I try to do something that's a little more along the lines of our life, our lifestyles. More of the mental and emotional choices that we make, whether or not that has to do with health or not. That's kind of the thought process here. And tonight's edition is really devoted to the cost of unhealthy choices, which of course I feel goes fairly deep, because I think it affects more than we think it does. A lot of times we think, okay, well, I know that I'm making this unhealthy choice right now, but it's not going to affect me as far in the future because I can stop at any time. And most of us know that that's just not the way it is, that every choice that we make affects our life, whether good or bad. Choices equal consequences. So, it's a thought. And so I have a couple of thoughts that I want to bring up, and we're going to talk a little bit about not only the cost of unhealthy choices, but the cost of making healthy choices, because there is a cost. Otherwise, most of us wouldn't we do it, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. And there are some costs when it comes to making healthy choices. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that all involves. I Googled this a little bit because I always do my research. And my first Google brought up, it mostly has to do with finances. And while finances are part of the costs, there's a lot more to it. So let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about when we're talking healthy choices. When I teach people about the healthy lifestyle overall that they need to live in order to reach their goals. And I find it really interesting because, I'm the type of trainer that I don't cut things out. If somebody comes to me and says, well, will you charge me less if we just don't talk about the nutrition? I'm like, no, because that so much affects where you're trying to go, that, even if you're trying to tone up a little bit, if you don't eat correctly, you're not going to get where you want to go. So there's multiple levels that can be affected when we're talking about healthy choices. So these things can all include things like, obviously, nutrition, because that's a huge part of it. That's going to be a big portion of our topic tonight. How about stress, right? Stress is so intensely affecting our country. So many of us are just stressed out all the time, and we talk about how our adrenals cannot keep up any longer, and so then we start to get these really intense situations or illnesses and things that happen from that. And so stress management and mental and emotional health is every bit as important as the physical part of it. And I have some notes, so I'm going to just grab them really quick to make sure I cover everything that I'm thinking about. So on top of those things, sleep, right? And I've talked about this multiple times that if you don't allow your body to rest and reset, you can't be at your best. There's just no possible way. God designed our bodies to actually have to take a break in order to get rested. It's part of fueling up is making sure that we are rested and ready to go and recovered, as well as fueling our body with healthy foods. So other choices that we might make, a lot of us, yeah, Sean, I know you struggle with sleep, dude. Other healthy or unhealthy choices we might make, a lot of us have vices. And I get it. There's certain things that we do because it makes us feel better. For some, smoking is the answer. They like how that feels, whether they got, hooked on that as a younger person or, for whatever reason, but it does something for them. The nicotine calms them down. It makes them feel good. How about excessive alcohol? Most of us drink when we just, maybe it's a social situation or, just once in a while to celebrate. But some people use it on a regular basis in order to relax at night, take themselves away from a certain situation, maybe a stressful situation, and it becomes a regular issue. Thereby, it's no longer a healthy choice. Or maybe even food. That, of course, was my biggest issue is I used food mostly like a drug because that food, even just briefly, would make me feel much better about whatever was going on, whether it was because I was stressed out, for bored, whatever that is, it can become a very unhealthy situation. And those things can not only cost us financially, but can cost us very much when it comes to our health. So we're going to talk about that as well. And the last thing that I came up with was just inactivity. and you can think about that on a couple of levels. First of all, in order to remain independent as we get older, we have to be able to be active and move. At some point, I don't want to turn 65, 70, 85 years old and have to rely on someone to take care of me. If I'm going to live to be that age, I want to have a quality of life. And in order to do that, I have to take care of myself now. I can't expect that I'll be able to turn it around, at some point when my doctor says, okay, by the way, you have heart disease. And because certain things do run in my family, I'm very aware of them. First of all, I know that there's evidence of osteoporosis that runs in my family. I know that heart disease and high blood pressure for sure runs in my family on both sides. I know that diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is something that's genetically passed down in my family. And some of those are reasons why I chose, 7, 8, 9 years ago to redo how I looked at my life, educate myself on how to be healthy and what that really meant, and make some major changes. So again, I don't do everything perfect. How would life be fun if I did everything perfect? Even though I'm a perfectionist, I know that I don't do everything perfect. And I'm not saying that I don't ever eat a piece of pizza or have a drink or, lay in bed for a day. To be honest, that's probably a good thing for me because I don't hold still very well. But 95% of my choices are based on, is that going to help me live longer? Is that going to help me feel better? Am I going to have more energy because I'm doing that? And at 42 years old, it makes a difference. I definitely not the same person I was in my 20s. So I'm very aware of how my choices in the past and currently are going to affect my future. So really quickly, first let's talk about the costs of making healthy choices. Because I know people are like, well, I just have to do it. True, but there are definitely some costs, and I'm not just talking financially. I know most people look at eating healthy as actually costing more money, but on average, really what the research says is it may cost approximately $1.50 a day more to actually make everything at home. But I'm going to disagree, because most people who are eating more unhealthy, convenient choices are using a lot of eating out, and actually that not just in the long run has financial implications, which we're going to talk about, but it actually ends up costing more, right? Because you've got to drive through the drive-thru, you've got to stop, you've got to make these choices, you got to feed the entire family. I know to take out my entire family to a sit-down dinner costs over $100, and that's getting way cheap. So again, in the long run and in the short run, that actually starts to cost a lot. So let's talk about the actual costs of eating, or of not just eating healthy, but just making healthier choices, okay? So number one, it might make you, this is a cost, it might make you get out of your comfort zone, right? You might have to start doing things that you don't normally do, which might be, go to the gym. And if that's uncomfortable, do it at your house. That's not a big deal. Whatever you can do. We talked about this last night. Last night's topic was, what if I just can't do any of it? Well, do something, right? Get started. That's part of it. But in order to get somewhere that you want to go, you might have to be uncomfortable, right? Change is uncomfortable. As we as humans don't particularly love change. We like a schedule. We like what's comfortable and reliable and normal, and we already know how to deal with. Even sometimes, even if it's a negative situation, we almost prefer that over change because change is so uncomfortable. So just realize that one of the costs is that you might have to put yourself in a position where you're not comfortable, right? So that's number one. Number two, you might have to give up relying on convenience. Right? So many people tell me, well, I just don't have time. Okay, well, make time, because trust me, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's what you choose to do with it that makes the difference. One of the best things I ever heard, I did 12, almost 13 years in Mary Kay. And one of the things that we would tell people when we talk about the opportunity was, busy people know how to get things done. Ask any mother who is crazy and doing multiple things and wearing multiple hats and working full time, and still having to play many roles. You ask her to do something fun that she wants to do, she will make time because it's a priority. So it has to be your choice, but you might have to give up on some things that are convenient, like drive-thrus, and you might actually have to take time to do some prep. Convenience is great in certain situations, but honestly, most of the time convenience should be a third or fourth choice, because if you're if you're ahead of the game, if you're prepared, then the convenient part won't matter. And of course, convenience usually means that we're skipping a step or trying to take a shortcut, which isn't usually our healthy option. And I know that I'm cold. It doesn't matter. I'm in my house, my heater's going, and I am freezing. So hence the reason I look like I'm wearing gloves. You might have to give up some vices. You might. I love caramel M&Ms. I refer to them as crack. But I don't eat them on a regular basis. When I feel stressed out, that's kind of my first thought is, I could just pop some M&Ms in my face and I'm going to briefly feel better because the sugar releases the dopamine and I feel great for 2 seconds. But I know what's going to happen after that little dopamine rush wears off. I'm going to feel guilty. I'm going to feel miserable, and it's going to affect me in a way that I'm not looking for when it comes to my health goals. So I know how that is. Again, for some people, it can be different things. For some people, it's drinking. For some people, it's smoking. You may, in order to get where you want to go and be healthy. Now, I'm not saying, again, that a drink once in a while is detrimental, or that eating a piece of chocolate cake or even those M&Ms once in a blue moon is not an okay thing. It's when we choose to look at those every day as something that makes us feel better. Most of us who have an unhealthy relationship somewhere in our life with food have been somewhere in that vicious cycle of eat to feel better, then feel guilty, then feel horrible and low self-esteem, and then we go back to eating because it makes us briefly feel. I can remember times literally bringing home a pint of ice cream, and just the thought of putting it in my face made me feel so much better, which is so ridiculous at this point. Now that I look back at it, I absolutely know that that's the rush of the drug of the sugar that had its effect on me. So again, you may have to figure out ways to get off of that. Now, let me I just had a couple of thoughts on this that I keep, I get a lot of my information, my ideas from a lot of my clients. And in the past, I've actually had several clients who've had some sort of allergen issue. I've had clients with Crohn's disease, which of course is an inflammation of the digestive system. I've had clients with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is also an issue with inflammation inside the digestive system. I've had just some issues where, I've had somebody who is obviously allergic to something. I still think it's gluten. But the interesting thing is that at certain times, on certain levels, these people have said, but I'd rather be miserable and eat those things than to give it up. Wow. I just don't understand that. I've seen people almost die because of their health choices, from things like heart attacks and heart disease, and even the significance and the intensity of that situation did not affect their choices and their ability to change. And it blows me away, because to me, that's the ultimate craziness of making those choices. Yeah, I'm going to continue to eat like this, even though I know it's going to kill me. So again, at some point, you may have to give up something that you think you absolutely can't do without. Sounds like drugs. Because it's not making you feel good. That's just how it goes. Unfortunately, when it comes to food is not something we can just stop eating, but we can make better choices. So again, yeah, I choose to give up eating chocolate on a daily basis and sugar on a daily basis because I don't like how I feel when I eat it. I like how I look without it. I like how I feel. I like what my body can do, the energy level that I have. And at 42, my family is just getting to the point where they're becoming adults. I still want at some point be able to be alive and watch not only my children as they get married and get older and all that, but as they have children and my grandchildren. That is something that is non-negotiable. I want to be there. So I'm going to make those choices. Again, another thing that you might have to give up, another cost of making healthy choices, is you might actually have to plan some time that you're not sitting on your butt watching TV. You might actually have to get your butt out of the house and go to the gym. I almost swore. You might actually have to plan some time to do some food prep or to cook healthy meals for your family. Health does not happen by chance. Having a healthy body that makes you proud of it, first of all, you got to fix your head to fix your body. We've already talked about that. But in order to have a healthy, happy body that you appreciate and that you take well care of, does not happen by chance. You actually have to take the time to be prepared and make conscious decisions to make good, healthy choices. You can't just rely on somebody else or it's easy for donuts to show up on the door. It's not easy for chicken and broccoli to show up on the door. You're actually going to have to do something to help prepare that. So there is no shortcuts. There is no magic pill. We've talked about this. And even if you think there is, you can't cheat science, guys. It doesn't work that way. You might think you can, but there's going to be some sort of a risk or a downward consequence because of the choices that you're making. You stop eating, your body stops reproducing cells, right? It can't work on nothing. So let's talk really quickly. Jared says that he finds food prep to be fun. You guys, it's not even that difficult. I can do an entire week's food prep in 45 minutes or less. And half the time I don't even have to be down there. I just have to wait for the timer to go off on the oven. I kind of got my groove down. So really quick, back to, shortcuts and things like that. Here was my thought. You can't have it all. You can't spend decades making bad choices. And guys, to some degree, this is on a conscious level because you're not fixing the situation. You're not fixing whatever it is that's wrong in your head or the habits or whatever situation happened earlier in your life that led you to this habit in order to change that. So you can't make decades of poor choices and then expect to look and feel good as you get older, right? Again, we're going to talk about the costs of those unhealthy choices in a second. An interesting fact that I learned doing some research today says that unhealthy diet is the leading cause of disability. The leading cause of disability. It's not car accidents. I know things happen, but to read that people's choices when it comes to nutrition is the leading cause of disability is flabbergasting. And of course, in the United States, we see that to the nth degree because, of course, that's what we support. Even kids in school look at soda pop and chips as part of an everyday staple, and that makes absolutely no sense to me. We are not teaching the right things as we go. Okay, so cost of poor choices, of unhealthy choices. And again, it's not just financial, but it is a good part of what happens to that. When you don't eat well, when you don't eat proper nutrition, your immune system goes down. And of course, you have more downtime, more sick days. You tend to be more unproductive. So not only does that cost you, that it costs the employers, which costs unemployment. I mean, there's a lot to that. But that's a huge part of it that, downtime, for somebody like me who's self-employed, if I can't work, I don't get paid. So that's a big deal. And secondly, how about even just health insurance? The cost of health insurance, for anybody who's actually looked into getting life insurance and they require that you actually get a physical, if you've made unhealthy choices such as smoking, or if you have some sort of liver disease because of maybe a lot of alcohol in the past, it costs much, much more to be insured. Health insurance, of course, in America is incredible because there's so many issues. And it's basically because we don't focus on prevention. We focus on putting out the fire after it's already happened. So instead of focusing on preventing obesity and all the downsides and the effects of that, we focus on, the pills, the insulin shots. I mean, all the things that are required in order to still live and deal with the diseases that we're causing because of our poor choices. So here's one that's non financial. How about just your time with friends and family? If you're sick, if you have some sort of a disease that's been caused by whatever, whether it's cancer because you've lung cancer because of smoking, or not only does that take you away from your friends and family, but in the long run, it actually puts you in a position where you don't get to spend as much time with family because you can't spend time with family when you are dead. And some of those things, that is the end result. So keep in mind that it's not, sometimes I think we forget, we kind of push off the long-term thoughts or consequences that are going to happen because we just like how it feels right now. And you can't forget the long-term consequences of the choices that you're making today because it just doesn't work that way. So when you have ill health, I remember as a kid going to my great grandmother's nursing home when we go visit my grandmother. And just to make a very long story short, she wasn't happy there. As a matter of fact, I happen to know that she was so upset with being put in a nursing home that she literally stopped talking. But part of it, at what point do you don't get the friends and family visiting you all the time? If you have to have care around the clock, you have to be put in a position where you are able to have that. And your family and friends are not always willing on top of that, but they may not have the ability to do that. So I have absolutely no desire to live past a good ripe old age if it's not a great quality of life. So what you do now prepares you for that. When you are making poor choices, your money has to go towards other things. It may have to go towards extra medication, which for those of you who've listened to me for any amount of time, I really fully believe that health starts with what you put in your system. It starts with what's in your gut. And of course, that's affected by the things that you eat and the things that you breathe in and the toxins that enter the body. So procedures, I found a really interesting, one of my beautiful, beautiful clients tonight, but bless her heart, she's so amazing. And she said that I could talk about this. She had gotten to the point where she was so frustrated with the way things were going and that she wasn't reaching her goals, that she was seriously considering surgery. And of course, she actually contacted me before going into that. But here's the deal. Surgery cannot undo years of bad habits. For people who, I'm not saying that some sort of bariatric surgery isn't necessary. I know that it happens. I know that there are times where that is absolutely necessary to save people's lives. But that surgery does not fix what got them into that position in the first place. And I've actually seen people with bariatric surgery get to the point where they've undone everything that surgery helped them to accomplish because they were not able to make those habit changes in their lives. And that can be pretty extensive. There's a lot of risk involved. I've heard some pretty serious situations in the last few weeks about some surgeries that have gone very, very wrong. Even over time, some risks that evolved that just about killed people. And that's just scary. And a lot of these things are situations that could have been prevented or at least dealt with in a way other than surgery and pills. We all have to start with basics, which is eat well, get some activity, get some sleep, and really work to fix our mental and emotional health so that we're in a position where we can live healthy overall, holistically. When you aren't taking good care of yourselves, you age faster, right? We all know they say that people who smoke, not only does their teeth start to look different colors and look gross, but their skin starts to age. Look at someone who's taking great care of themselves. I find it super funny. I have some friends that have competed in the bodybuilding world that are over 50, and I dare you to guess who they are because you're not going to be able to. They don't look their age. People who eat well, drink plenty of water, get plenty of sleep, really work to reduce their stress, don't look their age, okay? So I don't see a bad thing to that. Most of us don't want to look older than we are. Now, when we're young, we kind of want to look older than we are, but when it gets to this point, you kind of like when people guess you a little too young. But I want to age faster. At some point, again, back to the financial, your retirement may end up being depleted faster because you may have to put it towards unplanned medical situations or unplanned medical procedures and costs. I know as I watch my parents is in their retirement years, dealing with the cost of health insurance and, whether or not Medicare pays for certain things. And it's kind of a scary prospect, to have to deal with that. I'm hoping that for the rest of my life that's really not something I have to think about, that I'm eating healthy enough and I'm trying to fix some things with my health and nutrition instead of relying on doctors to tell me how to take care of that. And by the way, you understand that doctors only get about 19.6, that is the research, 19.6 education hours on nutrition. So even doctors, their first thought process is, how do I fix it? Or how do I put out that fire? How do I fix the symptoms, not the actual problem itself? And most don't actually cite nutrition as a first line of not only defense or prevention, but fixing her current situation as well. How about the cost of your vice? And I'm not even necessarily just talking, cigarettes obviously can get expensive. Drinking on a regular basis can obviously, buying the alcohol can get expensive. And of course we know the health costs of that. But even things, how many of you get one latte every day? And that latte has 50 grams of sugar. And that sugar actually raises your it spikes your insulin, and at some point that insulin can no longer function. You've basically worn it out, and you no longer have the ability to take care of the sugars in your body. So now you are diabetic. Again, you don't think about those kind of things, but how about 2 lattes? I know people that drink 2 lattes a day, two fancy schmancy, mocha schmocha, whatever. That starts to add up. You pay $6, that's $12 a day. That adds up. And we all complain about things that cost us money, like a gym membership. I'm like, oh, good night. Where's your priority level here? Here's a good one. And this is going to be my biggest thought process of the night, that when you make unhealthy choices to some degree at every level, your self-esteem and your self-confidence suffers, right? For those of us who have been overweight or obese, and again, I have been at that point in my life, a majority of my adult life, actually, we know what that does to us. It tears us apart. It actually costs us in other ways when we feel uncomfortable with ourselves. Not only does that affect us daily in our happiness, but that can affect us at our jobs, and not just our confidence at our jobs, but how we're treated at our jobs, the amount of income that we receive, because, and I'm not saying it's fair, I'm just saying that's what happens. And I have a really interesting quick story tonight. One of my clients flies back and forth to Vegas quite regularly. That's where the headquarters of her work is. And she just told me this evening that coming home tonight, earlier today, she actually gave her first class seat to a gentleman who was obviously just very much obese, and he was literally struggling to fit himself in the regular seats in the economy section of the plane. And I've actually seen a situation like that before, where the stewardesses were talking to a woman. This was about a year ago, a woman who they told her she should have bought in 2 seats. And she kept saying, how's that fair? And they're like, you're taking up 2 seats. You need to pay for it. How would you feel if that were you and somebody in front of the entire plane is basically making you feel horrible about your choices? Unfortunately, they had to give this woman an extra extension to her seat belt. And I've been in a position where I almost didn't fit in a seat on a plane. So I know that feeling and how embarrassing that can be. I think the emotional effects and the mental effects of those poor choices actually outweigh the financial downside and the costs to it. So my little friend, client, whatever you want to call her, beautiful woman, gave her first class seat tonight to a man who obviously couldn't fit in economy. And later on, not only did he send her a thank you note before she got off the plane, the entire crew sent her a thank you note. And I think that is one of the best Christmas gifts I've ever heard. Obviously, it's making me emotional, and I don't like emotion. So that's a pretty incredible story, and a pretty incredible feeling that she's given. So, it does take its toll. I've heard so many people that because they're bigger, they think they're bad. Being obese does not equal you being bad. That is not how that works. You have worth. God did not put us on this earth to hate ourselves. I've talked about that before. We're here to be happy and to help each other. So sometimes that cost is so much greater than the financial cost that it brings us. So keep that in mind. I don't wish that upon anybody. Everyone deserves to be happy. Everyone deserves to be healthy. And so that's all we're trying to accomplish, is to tell people how to do it the right way. Because to be honest, no offense, our government is not helping. They're not educating. The big food industry is, of course, they're all behind it because they want to sell their product. And Big Pharma wants you to take pills instead. So yeah, that's my thought process on it. You need to be a happy, confident person. And by making good choices, not only do you feel proud of yourself and accomplished, but again, you live longer, you have a much healthier life. So just think that, again, you cannot undo decades, and I'm not kidding, decades. I get people who are in their 50s and 60s and even 70s who are now, their doctors telling them that if they don't do something, they're not going to be independent. They have no balance. They're going to be, using a wheelchair or a walker or be stuck in a home. Who wants to do that? You can't undo decades of those choices overnight. People come to me and they're like, I've been eating healthy for 3 weeks. I'm like, yes, but you've been eating unhealthy for 30 years. You can't undo that and fix that in 3 weeks. 3 weeks is just the start. Now, again, don't get discouraged here. If you can't do everything, that's okay. Do something. Get started. You're not going to be able to change everything overnight. You're just not. Because number one, you've got to make habit changes. And remember, we don't like change. So yes, Athena says, drink more water. That's always my first one. Drink more water, track your food. But it will happen. It's just not going to happen overnight. And I keep reminding all of my clients, it's not how quickly you take it off. It's how long you keep it off. So even if weight loss is not your goal, even if it's just making better choices, it's not how quickly you can install that lifestyle. It's after you get there, how long can you keep that lifestyle going? And that doesn't happen. It doesn't take 3 days to create a habit, and it takes more than 3 weeks to create a lifestyle. You have to do it over time. And those that want it quick, think that they can get there. New Year's resolutions are coming up real quick. I hate them. I absolutely hate them, because people think, okay, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. And then they go back to the same garbage they were doing before and expecting it to stay off. You have to create that lifestyle. Whatever you do now to get there, you have to do that for the rest of your life, or you're going to put that right back on. So again, it can be very expensive when it comes to not only the costs and the financial costs, but also your time here on earth and the mental and emotional strength and health that you have. So hopefully that helps people. You know what? I believe that everybody deserves to be happy and healthy, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So you guys, thank you for tuning in. You are awesome. Happy holidays. Please, if you guys hear stories like the one I was talking about earlier, please tell me. To be honest, it's the reason I don't watch the news anymore. I don't want to hear about all the horrible, negative garbage going on in the world. I want to hear the positive, happy stories where humans are helping each other, because that's what keeps me going and keeps me excited. So have an incredible evening, guys, and have a good one. Oh, and happy December tomorrow.